Welcome to part two of my interview with Christian Easterday, Managing Director and CEO of Hot Chili, ASX code HCH. Now we're going to talk about funding of the project. I hope you enjoy part two. One of the things I wanted to note is I think Glencore are a reasonably, if not the largest, pretty much the largest shareholder for you.
They are, yeah.
What's the interest there? What's the relationship? What's the offtake agreement? Because I think that's important for investors, potential investors, to understand.
Yeah, thanks, Kerry, for touching on that. And look, we hope that a lot of the shareholders are happy today, and no doubt Glencore, as our largest shareholder, holding just under 8% of the stock, are also happy. They invested in Hot Chili just over 3 years ago now as a strategic investment, because they recognised and shared in the vision that Hot Chili had for this part of the coastline. You know, we had a prized asset already, and it was growing rapidly with Cortadera, and we could leverage off all of that infrastructure advantage and all of that permitting in time that we advanced the project through to build a large production hub, something that Glencore is very familiar with and very comfortable with: central processing, draw from multiple assets, and that's how you get your scale if you can't get it in one deposit. So it was something that they saw, and then I think that, that the offtake agreement came about 9 months later. So it wasn't a typical Glencore investment where it came with a 100% offtake agreement, life of mine, and that speaks to what they were thinking. They signed an agreement to be a benchmark term offtake partner of Hot Chili on 60% of our output, but only on the first 8 years. And so that basically left me with a lot of funding optionality. And fast forward now 3 years into a very different concentrate market where refiners have built in 9 million tonnes of smelting capacity, preparing for this electrified future and all of the copper that will be required. But there's been significant inertia from the existing supply side, which is what you're saying. The mines are getting older, they're getting lower grade, and we are finding very few major discoveries in the world. They're drying up, the discoveries. They're getting very hard to find. And when you layer on the average time frame of nearly 20 years to bring it to production, that's the thematic that most people recognise. And so now we're in a position, I guess, with our friends at Glencore, that we're finally delivering on a promise. That we could take out some more assets and send this to a 2 billion tonne project that would support a production hub towards 150,000 tonnes per annum. That is a Glencore-sized project. And that is the type of project that BHPs and Rio Tintos and the big end of town in copper will sit up and take notice for. So we very much knew what we needed to do, but we also, needed people to be patient. We can't click our fingers and do deals with families that don't need money and are extremely rich themselves, and certainly don't need Hot Chili out there doing something to mines that they can turn on and off whenever they want and can hold forever. So I guess what Glencore was backing our ability to do what we did at Productora, do what we did at Cortadera. So very, very pleasing, and yes, I believe that we have some very happy shareholders this morning now that this long wait is over and we can confirm a new major discovery in our portfolio.
Okay, well, I've got lots. Like, we could go on for hours, but we don't have that much time.
No.
Last time I spoke to you, and I think it was at Rick Rawls' conference, we talked a lot about the water business. Now, from what I understand, you are potentially selling down the water business to fund the copper business. Am I right or am I wrong?
Yeah, look, it's one of our funding optionalities that we've developed. It was a very strategic asset that we recognised when people started offering us checks for our licenses, and and offering to build us a water pipeline if they could secure our water supply offtake agreements. So, look, we were aware that this was something that could be monetized. We just didn't know a lot about what that option looked like. So, the last year and a half we've looked into it. It just kept looking more and more attractive. We started to come up to speed with what's happening in Chile, and we started to realize that this is a very, very common way for big Chilean mines to be built. Antofagasta put out a very similar deal to how we're thinking about this, where they sold their Centinela water rights to a consortium for 600 million US.
Oh,
It's a
wow.
very helpful cash injection to their big $4 billion expansion of Centinela. And that allowed that consortium to secure that offtake agreement to supply them water for 20 years, and allowed them to be the party that was financing a $400 million piece of capital for that major expansion. So what we see with BHP and their Spence mine, that's water that's supplied by a third party with Mitsui Water, about 1,200 litres per second of desal. So even Australian companies like BHP have outsourced their water infrastructure, and this is a growing trend in Chile. So much like us having credits of gold and molybdenum and silver, and the funding optionality that presents, this was an embedded strategic asset that we had in our project, and we were just very lucky that we applied for these licenses. Almost 12 years ago, when we looked at the situation in the Atacama, we said, not very far away, no one's going to be taking water out of the ground. And fast forward, we got our maritime concession approved. We got the coastal land access, there's all the easements, all the assets we need to supply ourselves with water from the ocean. But then we looked around and realised that nobody else had a maritime concession in this entire region.
Wow.
And we're talking about 6 major undeveloped projects. Interestingly, you add up the Nueva Unions, the Philo Minings, the Jose Marias that BHP and Lundin are now joint ventured on above us, the ATEXs of the world with Encierro, major discovery sitting just to the east of us, up at 4,000 metres, the neighbouring deposit that's been discovered next to that, Encierro, by Antofagasta and Barrick in joint venture. None of these projects have water license or the ability to take water from the ocean. Now, that represents a big opportunity when it took Hot Chili 10 years to secure those water licenses. So it's something that we're investigating.
Okay.
We're looking at supplying water to ourselves, outsourcing some of our capital, getting someone else to supply the water to us for 20 years. But we're also looking at the opportunity that water or that potential to supply desalination to the entire region can bring benefit to all those projects, can bring benefit to the communities in which we operate, and so tie in our social license to operate, so that Hot Chili is going to build Costa Fuego not as a big mining company coming in that'll create jobs and all of that wonderful intergenerational equity that the mining industry provides, but we're going to be coming in to provide water to the desert and to the communities in which we operate.
Yeah.
And that makes Hot Chili a very, very different company in terms of its approach to
Yeah.
how we're developing Costa Fuego, how we might be able to use that to finance Costa Fuego and shield our investors from big equity side dilution that these projects normally imply.
Okay, there's a lot to take in. I want to kind of wrap it up if I can. I've got 2 questions. First one, permitting. Where are you at? Because sometimes permitting can take years and years and years.
Yeah, and again, you're sort of talking to our key strengths, and the key strengths, just because we started a lot longer before any of our peers. We started permitting almost 12 years ago, on the early stages of the Productora discovery. So a lot of that work has had nearly 10 years of lead up on baseline studies and everything that we've done. And that means we're probably coming into our EIA submission, the final permit we require this year, with probably the most amount of investment of any project I'm aware of in Chile going to a regulator. So We saw that as really the key de-risker for this project. It's been a 10-year lead time into it. This year last year, we started our official community engagements, and we're having town hall meetings and really lifting up our profile in the local community. But Hot Chili has built a really strong brand in this part of Chile with the local communities of Huasco and Freirina. We have everything that we need in place on permits, bar the final application, which is our EIA. That'll be going
And
in
by the
this
way,
year.
sorry to interrupt you, Christian. EIA, Environmental
Impact Assessment.
Just you're all out there now, because I've got some newbies that are listening, and they'll go, "What's an EIA?" So just want to.
It's effectively your license that you need to build a new big mine.
All right. Biggest challenge for you at the moment?
Look, biggest challenge is going to be managing my capital. Look, we completed a capital raising of $32 million last year.
Yeah.
We got a lot of criticism because we didn't deploy our drilling budget from the drilling budget that we put aside, the component of that 32 million. And now people understand why we put that money aside. So we, our challenge is to continue to prudently manage that money. We have $19 million we just announced in the last quarterly.
Mm-hmm.
We have big milestones coming out with 2 big studies on pre-feasibilities for water and copper at the end of this quarter. And now we have a fantastic discovery. But you've got to be very, very careful and efficient with porphyry discoveries. We don't want to throw 3 or 4 drill rigs at the moment. So we're managing that expenditure and how we're looking at managing our final financing going into our feasibility. But that is some way away when you can sit here with your pre-feasibility is almost done, most of the money already spent on that, a big chunk of your money that was put aside for just this day to start drilling a great new discovery. So we'll manage that very carefully, and we certainly won't be turning on all drill rigs and spending that money over the next 4 or 5 months. That was due to last us into the latter end of this year. And so that's what will be my key focus as to how we manage that for shareholders.
All righty. Before I ask you for 3 reasons, because this is how I like to finish it up, 3 reasons why people should sit up and take notice. I guess, what's your view on the copper market? I think the copper price at the moment is about $4.60. I think it hit $5 last year. There's clearly, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, a supply-demand deficit going forward. Do you think 2025, I love gold. You got gold as well, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Do you think this is the year for copper?
After being asked this at nearly the beginning of every year, Kerry, and seeing quite a number of false starts, I'm probably not going to call it. I'm a bit superstitious that way.
Okay.
But do I see all of the fundamentals, unchanged? Yes.
Yeah.
It's ran past $5 twice now. Geez, give it another week, it might be at $5 again very shortly. I mean, it's just lifted some 13% in 6 days of trading now.
Oh wow.
So we've gone from 420. I think we're sitting at $4.71 this morning.
Oh wow. Okay.
So we're within QE of $5 again, and I think that we're going to see the copper price continue to hit this ceiling, and it's trying to punch through. And every time it does it, supply side doesn't come to the party. Now the refiners have put a lot of pressure on the actual physical concentrate market, and that's creating periods of shorting in the market that is jumping around the copper price. But look, I think we're on the cusp of a new world with what's going on over in the US, and I think that we're probably going to see domestic-led consumption start to really infiltrate the market on top of all of the new themes that everyone keeps talking about, which is the electrification of everything. I think it's important to look at how the economies are going to start encouraging their own domestic demand side. And it's that domestic demand side which is still the lion's share of the copper consumption demography. But that demography is changing towards electric cars, towards AI, towards all the things that people are hearing about. And it's only getting stronger. So, I don't think that is plausible to see how the copper industry can supply, almost a 40%, 50% increase in the second largest metal market of the world within the next 10 years. Really,
Yeah.
I think it's the thing of fantasies. And so when things are the thing of fantasies and you have an insatiable demand for a commodity that is just continuing to grow, then that ultimately hits price and will be a foundation behind an ever lifting price. The lows will get higher and the highs will get higher going forward. That is
Yep.
what I predict.
All right, there we go, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to ask him the last one, which is 3 reasons why you think people should sit up and take notice of hot chili right now. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, they're listed on the ASX HCH, but they're also on the TSXV. So if you're watching this from Canada, they're on the Toronto Venture Capital Exchange. So 3 reasons they should sit up and take notice right now.
One of the biggest undeveloped copper projects of the world and only getting bigger. One of the biggest exposures outside of the majors to copper metal and near-term production. And most importantly for the gold sector, Kerry, about to become one of the largest gold resources in the ASX as a credit.
Watch this space, ladies and gentlemen. I might try and get him along to Gold Coast Gold or the Sydney Gold Conference on that comment. Christian East, it's been fantastic to have you on the channel. We hope to have you back again soon. All the best and congratulations on your latest announcement. Thanks for joining me on Making Money Matter.
Thank you, Kerry.